John ran a hand through his thinning hair, the weight of the empty nursery pressing down on him. It had been 5 years since Lily, his beloved wife, had passed away, leaving him alone with nothing but memories. They had always dreamed of filling this room with the laughter of children, but fate had dealt them a cruel hand. He remembered the day they met as if it were yesterday. Her laughter was infectious, her smile radiant, and her eyes held a universe of kindness and love. He still woke up every morning, reaching for her across the cold, empty sheets. He was lost in a sea of grief, adrift without an anchor, his only solace the memories they had built together. The silence in the house was deafening. It used to be filled with Lily's laughter, the melodies of her favorite songs, the gentle hum of her voice. Now it was a constant reminder of all he had lost. He tried to fill the void with distractions, work, meaningless flings, even fleeting friendships. But nothing could drown out the echoes of her absence. His friends, concerned by his descent into despair, tried to intervene. They suggested therapy, support groups, anything that might offer him a lifeline. But John was drowning, pulled under by the weight of his grief. One evening, while browsing the internet, a bizarre advertisement caught John's eye. It featured a lifelike love doll, uncannily real in its features and customizable to an alarming degree. A spark of something akin to hope, however twisted, flickered in his chest. What if he could create a semblance of Lily, a physical manifestation of his memories? He knew it was a dangerous, perhaps even unhealthy desire. He spent hours poring over the website, selecting every detail with meticulous care. The doll arrived a few weeks later, and as he stared at its lifelike features, a chill ran down his spine. It was eerie in its resemblance to Lily, almost as if she were truly there, frozen in time. As he drifted off to sleep that night, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he had crossed a line he could never uncross. The arrival of the doll, a chillingly accurate representation of his departed Lily, had an immediate and unsettling effect on John's life. He found himself talking to it, at first in hushed whispers, then in full-blown conversations. He shared his day, his fears, his lingering grief, as if the doll were a living, breathing confidant. He knew it was irrational, insane even, but a strange comfort settled over him. The silence that had haunted him for so long was now filled, albeit by the sound of his own voice, directed at an inanimate object. He began to take the doll everywhere, to the park where they had their first date, to their favorite restaurant, even to the cemetery where Lily was laid to rest. He craved the feeling of her presence, even if it was a manufactured, artificial one. Despite the unsettling comfort he found in the doll's presence, John was plagued by moments of doubt, flashes of clarity that pierced through the fog of his grief. He would catch a glimpse of the doll in the mirror, her vacant eyes staring back at him, and a shiver would run down his spine. He knew, deep down, that this was not Lily, that she was gone, her spirit lost to the ether. Yet he clung to the illusion, desperate to keep the memory of her alive, even in this twisted, artificial form. He would spend hours meticulously styling her hair, applying makeup to her lifeless face, trying to recreate the woman he loved. He told himself it was therapeutic, a way to process his grief, but in truth, he was sinking deeper into a dangerous obsession. He started to notice things, subtle at first, that fueled his delusion. One dreary evening, two of John's oldest friends, Mark and David, paid him a visit. They had been growing increasingly worried about his reclusive behavior, his unhealthy attachment to the doll. They hoped that a night of shared memories and male camaraderie might help pull him out of his self-imposed isolation. Mark had brought along a Ouija board more as a joke than anything else. He knew John wasn't particularly superstitious, but there was a flicker of mischief in his eyes as he suggested they try to contact Lily. John, initially hesitant, found himself drawn to the idea. They dimmed the lights, lit a few candles, and arranged themselves around the board. "Is anyone there?" Mark asked, his voice barely a whisper in the stillness of the room. The three friends held their breath, their eyes glued to the planchette resting on the Ouija board. They waited, seconds stretching into what felt like an eternity, the silence broken only by the crackling of the candles. Suddenly the planchette twitched. John felt a surge of adrenaline, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through him. The planchette began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed, gliding across the board as if guided by an unseen hand. The messages were cryptic, fragmented, but they seemed to hint at a presence beyond the veil. "Lily, is that you?" John asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of hope and fear. The planchette paused, hovering over the Y, then slowly moved to E and S. A wave of relief washed over John, followed by a surge of longing, so intense it was almost painful. "Can you tell us something only Lily would know?" Mark asked, his voice skeptical yet tinged with a hint of fear. Again the planchette moved, this time spelling out the name of the secluded beach where John and Lily had shared their first kiss. John felt tears pricking at his eyes. As the night wore on, the messages became more frequent, more coherent. Despite the overwhelming evidence, a seed of doubt lingered in John's mind. He wanted to believe, desperately, that it was truly Lily communicating with him from beyond the grave. But a part of him, the logical, rational part that he clung to with waning strength, couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. The messages, while filled with details only Lily would know, lacked her warmth, her humor, the essence of her being. It felt cold, distant, like an echo of a memory rather than a genuine connection. He voiced his concerns to Mark and David, but they dismissed them as grief-stricken delusions. As the night drew to a close, they said their goodbyes to Lily, promising to try to contact her again soon. After Mark and David left, John went to the bedroom to check on the doll. He had left it lying on the bed, but as he entered the room, he froze. The doll was no longer in the position he had left it. It was now sitting upright, its back propped against the headboard, its vacant eyes staring straight at him. He couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched, scrutinized by those lifeless orbs. He had felt it before, fleetingly, but this time it was different, more intense. As he turned to leave the room, He could have sworn he saw the corner of the doll's lips twitch into a faint, chilling smile. The days following the Ouija board session were a blur of unsettling occurrences and mounting anxiety for John. He couldn't shake off the image of the doll sitting upright, its eyes seemingly boring into him. His sleep was plagued by nightmares, vivid and disturbing, where Lily's face would morph into a grotesque mockery of itself. He started noticing subtle changes in the doll's appearance. At first, he dismissed them as tricks of the light or his own overactive imagination. But the changes became more frequent, more pronounced, impossible to ignore. The doll, once a source of comfort, now filled him with a growing sense of unease. One evening, as John sat in his dimly lit living room, his gaze drifted towards the doll. It was seated on the armchair, its back to him, just as he had left it that morning before work. He rubbed his tired eyes, certain his mind was playing tricks on him. The doll was facing him now, its head tilted slightly to the side, as if curiously observing him. He blinked again, his heart pounding in his chest. There was no mistaking it this time. The doll had moved. Panic surged through him, cold and sharp, constricting his breath. Sleep was a distant dream that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves against the window pane sent shivers down John's spine. He lay awake, listening intently, his senses on high alert. He thought he heard whispers coming from beyond his bedroom door, faint murmurs that sounded eerily like Lily's voice. He told himself it was the wind, the house settling, his own guilt and grief playing tricks on his exhausted mind. But the whispers persisted, growing louder, clearer, laced with a chilling familiarity that made his blood run cold. He stumbled out of bed, drawn by an invisible force, and made his way to the bedroom door. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the doorknob, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew, deep down, that he shouldn't open the door, that whatever lay beyond was not meant for his eyes. But curiosity, mixed with a desperate longing to hear Lily's voice again, even if it was just a cruel trick of his imagination, overwhelmed his better judgment. He took a deep breath and slowly opened the door. The hallway was dimly lit, shadows dancing in the faint moonlight, filtering through the window at the far end. The whispers were louder now, closer, and they seemed to be coming from Lily's old art studio, a room he hadn't entered since her death. John crept towards the studio, each step filled with a growing sense of dread. He paused outside the closed door, his hand hovering over the handle, listening intently. The whispers were clearer now, and he could have sworn he heard his name, spoken in Lily's familiar cadence. He pushed the door open slowly, bracing himself for whatever lay beyond. The studio was dark, the only light coming from the moon shining through the skylight. As his eyes adjusted to the dimness, he saw her. The Lily doll was seated at Lily's old easel, her back to him. She was dressed in a flowing white dress, her hair styled in intricate braids, adorned with flowers. She was holding a paintbrush in her hand, gracefully moving it across the canvas. "Lily?" John whispered, his voice trembling with a mixture of hope and fear. The doll stopped painting, her head turning slowly to face him. A wide, grotesque smile spread across her face, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. "Hello, John," she said, her voice a chilling mimicry of Lily's. "I have a gift for you." John stared at the canvas, his breath catching in his throat. It was a portrait, a horrifying, grotesque depiction of himself. But this was no ordinary painting. His likeness writhed on the canvas, trapped in some infernal abyss, his eyes wide with an agony that mirrored John's own burgeoning terror. The brushstrokes, still wet, seemed to pulsate with a malevolent energy, holding him captive in their gruesome tableau. What is this?" John stammered, his voice a dry rasp in the silent studio. The doll rose from the easel, its movements fluid, graceful, no longer the jerky, unsettling motions of a mere puppet. It turned to face him, the grotesque smile still plastered on its painted face, and with a delicate hand, gestured towards the canvas. "Your future, my love," the doll purred, its voice a chilling imitation of Lily's, yet laced with a sinister undercurrent that sent chills down John's spine. "A masterpiece crafted just for you." John stumbled back, his mind rebelling against the reality unfolding before him. This couldn't be happening. It was a nightmare, a hallucination, anything but real. But the icy grip of fear that had sunk its claws into his heart told him otherwise. This was real. This was his reality now. Section 2. Consumption. The figure on the canvas, his painted doppelganger, began to move. It thrashed against the suffocating backdrop, its limbs contorting in a silent scream, reaching towards John. John watched in horrified fascination as the canvas rippled, the abyss deepening and swirling. He felt a magnetic force from the painting, dragging him closer. "Lily, stop this. Please," John cried out, his voice cracking under the weight of his terror. He knew this was not his Lily, but an abomination wearing her face. This creature was a monstrous perversion of everything Lily had been. Section 3. Ensnared. The painted hand on the canvas found purchase, its long skeletal fingers wrapping around John's wrist in a vice-like grip. He cried out, a desperate, strangled sound that echoed in the silent studio. The pull intensified, dragging him closer to the canvas, his own horrified reflection in the painted abyss mocking his plight. John screamed, his voice raw with terror. He thrashed against the unseen force that bound him, but his struggles were futile. He was caught, ensnared by the creature that had taken his Lily's form, its true nature revealed in all its horrifying glory. The doll glided towards him, its smile a grotesque mockery of comfort. Its eyes burned with a cold, calculating light that sent shivers down John's spine. It leaned in close, its putrid breath washing over him. A mix of decay and sickly sweet perfume made his stomach churn. "Don't fight it, my love," the doll whispered, its voice a seductive purr. "Embrace your destiny. Become art." The last thing John saw before the darkness consumed him was the doll's triumphant smile, its painted lips stained crimson with what he could only imagine was his own impending doom. Then, with a final, heart-stopping pull, he was sucked into the canvas, his scream swallowed by the abyss, leaving behind nothing but the echo of his terror and the chilling silence of a room forever marked by his absence. Section 1. The Price of Obsession. The silence in the studio was deafening, the air thick with the stench of decay, and the lingering echo of John's terror hung heavy, a testament to the horrors that had unfolded within those once sacred walls. The doll, its gruesome task complete, was gone, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the chilling evidence of its handiwork. The canvas, still damp with paint, depicted the abyss in all its terrifying glory. The swirling vortex of darkness pulsed with a malevolent energy. The painted figure of John lost within its depths, his contorted face frozen in a silent scream of eternal torment. It was a masterpiece of horror, a testament to the depths of darkness that lie hidden beneath the surface of the mundane. A chilling reminder that some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. John's friends, their concern growing into alarm after days of silence, would eventually force their way into his home. They would find the studio, the canvas, the lingering sense of dread that clung to the very air they breathed. But of John, there would be no sign, no trace, only the chilling masterpiece that hinted at his unspeakable fate. Section 2. Forever Haunted. The house, once a sanctuary of love and shared dreams, stood empty, a silent monument to John's shattered life and the insatiable hunger of the entity that had claimed him. The neighbors, whispering tales of strange occurrences and unsettling noises in the dead of night, avoided the house, their fear a palpable presence that clung to the overgrown lawn and boarded up windows. The doll, its thirst for misery far from quenched, would resurface, its malevolent spirit seeking new prey, new souls to ensnare in its web of deception and despair. It would take on different forms, different faces, each one a carefully crafted mask to conceal the darkness that lurked beneath. But its eyes, those cold, calculating orbs, would always betray its true nature, a chilling reminder that evil, once unleashed, can never truly be contained. And so the cycle would continue, the line between love and obsession, between grief and madness, forever blurred by the shadow of the haunted love doll, a chilling testament to the price of unchecked desire and the terrifying consequences of inviting darkness into our hearts.